Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Zach, good. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Varudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Varudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Assam of devotees. All glories to the Assam of devotees. All glories to the Assam of devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad-jittama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of February 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the fourth canto entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 9, Dhruva Maharaj Returns Home, text number 48. Uttamascha Dhruvascha Anyongyam Prema Vihvalau Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhar Uhatuhu. Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraughang Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamascha Dhruvascho Bhav Anyonyam Prema Vigvalao Angasangat Utpulakav Asraugham Muhu Uhatuhu Uttamacha also Uttama Dhruvacha Dhruva also Ubhao both Anyonyam one another Prema Vigvalao being overwhelmed with affection Angasangat by embracing Utpulakao their hair stood up Asra of tears Ogham torrents Muhu again and again Uhatuhu and they exchanged. Translation. The two brothers Uttama and Dhruva Maharaj also exchanged their tears. They were overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love and affection, and when they embraced one another, the hair on their bodies stood up. No purport. Suniti rasa janani pranebhyo pi priyam sutam upaguya jahavadim tadanga sparsha nivrita. Suniti, the real mother of Dhruva Maharaj, embraced the tender body of her son, who was dearer to her than her own life, and thus forgot all material grief, for she was very pleased. Next verse. My dear Vidura, so this is of course Maitreya speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, Suniti was the mother of a great hero. Her tears, together with the milk flowing from her breasts, wet the whole body of Dhruva Maharaj. This was a great auspicious sign. Purport. When deities are installed, they are washed with milk, yogurt, and water, and this ceremony is called Abhisheka. In this verse, it has been especially mentioned that the tears which flowed down from the eyes of Suniti were all auspicious. This auspiciousness of the Abhishek ceremony performed by his beloved mother was an indication that in the very near future, Dhruva Maharaj would be installed on the throne of his father. The history of Dhruva Maharaj's leaving home was that his father refused to give him a place on his lap, and Dhruva Maharaj determined that unless he got the throne of his father, he would not come back. Now this Abhishek ceremony performed by his beloved mother was an indication that he would occupy the throne of Maharaj Uttanapada. It is also significant in this verse that Suniti, mother of Dhruva Maharaj, is described as Veera Su, a mother who produced a great hero. There are many heroes in the world, but there is no comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, who was not only a heroic emperor of this planet, but also a great devotee. A devotee is also a great hero because he conquers the influence of Maya. When Lord Chaitanya inquired from Ramananda Roy about the most famous man in this world, The latter replied that anyone who is known as a great devotee of the Lord is to be accepted as the most famous. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So what came to mind when I was reading this passage of the return of Dhruva Maharaj and the great emotion that which he was greeted, welcome, of his both his mothers, his brother, of course his father was overwhelmed with relief, and the fact that he had become dear to everybody. Even Suruchi, who, let's face it, she had a little envy there. She was, she engineered this whole thing by forbidding him from sitting on his father's lap. But with the return of Dhruva, after amazing, miraculous return, after 6 months in the forest, 5-year-old boy, after 2 days, they'll send out a search party into the woods, to try to find the body if it happens on a material level. Everyone is totally relieved. There's just this overwhelming outpouring of love and relief, and especially his mother with this abhishek, natural abhishek. So I was reminded of the line in the prayers to the 6 Goswamis, Dira Dira Jana Priyo Priyakaro, that they're dear to everybody by the nature of their devotional service, the purity and the love that they're expressing at every moment for the Lord. And because of that, also for everybody, every human being, this is one of the things that happen when you are on that level. Then they automatically melt at everybody's heart, even the adira, even the dacoits and others, in every society, even in Vrindavan, there's going to be a rough element. But everybody loved them. So that's a big kind of transformation that's taken place, because before there was rivalry and there was some enmity and jealousy and all these different things. But now that's gone. And this wonderful purport here where Prabhupada talks about the abhishek of the tears of Suniti mixed with the milk from her breast reminds me of this, so many scenes you read in the Krishna book. Krishna's coming home immediately, mother, the milk starts flowing. You can imagine the level of affection and love there. So there's this one beautiful verse near the beginning of Vidagdha Madhava, which I've been dipping into lately. Let's see if I can recall it. Ahaha kamala gande ratta saundar hivrinde vinahita nayanenam tranmukendo mukunda kuchakalasa mukabhyamam baraknopamam bhatava mohandati harsham varshati chiyadadharam. So did you pick that up? Varshati means rain, a rain of kheer, of milk. So ahaham is how wonderful it is. There's a word in Sanskrit, ahaha. You find it in some verses. And so I think it's Nanda Maharaj who's speaking to Krishna now. Aha kamala gandhir, oh you who are the fragrance of a lotus, atva saundarya vrinde, and who are the sum total of all beauties, saundarya vrinde. Vindhine nayanayam, your mother has fixed you in her gaze. Nayanayam atva mukhendor, fixed your face, your beautiful moon-like face in her gaze. And kuchakalasha mukhabhyam, from her pot-like breast, from the spigots of the pot-like breast, the nipples of the pot-like breast is pouring this milk that is wetting her whole clothes and everything, and how wonderful it is. So that's a description that appears oftentimes in the 10th canto. The incredible love that the mother, and here he's got two mothers who love him, even though Suruchi is kind of as a stepmother, still she's expressing her love and her relief. So now it says here that it's all auspicious, and Prabhupada defines this auspiciousness as a kind of a prediction that he'll take on that throne. Now you remember when he finally realized Vishnu came down, and he's on the appearing outside of he's meditating in the heart, and he breaks the meditation, and he looks outside, and there's Vishnu on Garuda. And this incredible scene where he started, crying, hair standing on end, rolling on the ground. It was as if he was licking the whole body of the Lord, and it was an amazing description of his ecstatic symptoms. And then he offers these prayers, and of course the most famous prayer is actually in the Bhagavatam, the one that ends Swaman Katartosmi Padang Niyashe, that I don't want any benediction. I realize now that this kingdom I wanted, which I wanted greater than my grandfather's, here it says that he insisted on his father's kingdom, but he was thinking of even much greater kingdom. He says that's just like broken glass compared to this wonderful darshan, which is like a great jewel, ratna. Therefore, I don't want anything else. I don't care about all that stuff now. But here he's saying that the auspiciousness is that he will take the throne. Now, it will be auspicious not for him. He's kind of almost living out a sentence. I mean, how long was he, Zach? How long was he going to be king? I thought it was 36. I think it's 36,000. That's a long time, And as you read ahead, and it describes more about Dhruva's reign there. And he got entangled in this whole thing with his brother getting killed. You can see a wonderful relationship they had. And the Yakshas killed him, and he went out and started annihilating the Yakshas, and that was a kind of a deviation. So he was like, do I have to? Here he thought it really wasn't important, but he took the role because his father, did his father pass away soon? I forget, from the emotional strain. But anyway, he took up the kingdom. And he dutifully followed that all the while, remembering Vishnu and thinking, okay, when can we finally go back to Godhead? And that happened eventually, but 36,000 years. So here, the auspiciousness now is why was it so auspicious? Not for him so much, but for the people, those who he's going to rule. To have a pure devotee as the head of the government, you can just imagine what it would be like, in America, rather than 180 degrees, the opposite. I mean, everyone can see. There's a word describing, the Greeks. They had these words. Democracy, that's come from the Greek and everything. Aristocracy, all these ocracies. Kakistocracy. You ever hear of it? It's the rule by the worst. Kakistocracy. Kakisdo. So that's what but in the Bhagavatam we see the contrast, rule by the best. The whole Mahabharata war was fought for that, because Krishna knew how important that was. When Parikshit was saved, part of the reason he was so anxious to see was the last of the descendants of the Pandavas. So he became the king, and his rule was ideal. He held back the advent of Kali, the wonderful story in the first canto. And you had, of course, Prithu, who was the ideal king, and Rishabdev. So there's various examples of these Rajarshis, combinations of Raja and Rishi. Now, the Rishi part is all important. In other words, they're steeped in the Shastra, just like the Brahmins, but still they rely on the Brahmins because the ruling and everything, it's the mode of passion is there, and so they rely on the advice of the pure Brahmins. But that how happy people are to be ruled in that way. People are decent and because they're protected, they feel protected. That was the whole thing with Ram Raja. So we're living in the Kali Yuga. It's not going to happen, at least not anything like what we read about here. And it's described in the 12th canto, the succession of demoniac kings, so much so that the people just want to leave and go to the forest. We have now, of course, a lot of it's due to climate change, when suddenly you can't grow food anymore because of drought conditions or too hot conditions. That's happened in the Middle East. A lot of that migration out of Syria, first of all, was internal, from the land, which couldn't support people, into the cities, which creates all kinds of struggle when there's too many people. Anyway, but this migration of people away from untenable positions, that's what this whole thing is coming up from the Central America. Because of the United States and our imperialism, and insisting on having rulers in these states that'll just bring in all the businesses so that we can exploit. devour the people, as is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. You have to, the mothers generally take the kids to somehow to escape. And where do they go? To America. That's what's going on. This whole wall thing is just another demonism. So we're living it now. We're living, what's predicted in the 12th canto. It's all coming true. So we see the wonderful contrast here with Dhruva, and he describes his rule. And his mother is glorified as Virasu, having given birth to this hero. I mean, you often forget, but I remember listening to a lecture one time, and Prabhupada is talking about how important the women are, to have really saintly women and wives. He said all of these acharyas, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Bhaktisiddhanta, every one of them had mothers. They're all raised, they were given birth to. You can't discount that. I mean, so Krishna says, Dharma varuddha buddhishu kamasmi bharatarshava. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. So all of that is important, and she's glorified here. Of course, Suniti, as I pointed out many times, means the very virtuous one. So, and Prabhupada compares Dhruva, who was not only a heroic emperor, but also a great hero as a devotee, because he conquered the influence of Maya. So each of us is kind of, on a battlefield. I mean, Prabhupada has talked about this, how Arjun, he's on a real battlefield, and Krishna is really there. It's true, but there's also we can extrapolate from that we're all on a battlefield. Those of us who are at least making the effort to counteract Maya, transcend the modes of nature, and go back to Godhead. So Maya is an agent that's meant to test us. That's one of her duties. It's just like if you're, in a reformatory, you can't just be there for 6 months and then walk out. They have to test you. Are you really reformed? What is your behavior like? What is your consciousness like that? So we're in that reformatory prison house, and Maya is duty bound to test us. Prabhupada mentioned in one lecture that when you make the effort to be Krishna conscious, which is actually like declaring war on Maya, then she makes all kinds of tests. It becomes harder to control things that before didn't bother you. Something may grab your consciousness that wasn't even, you didn't even think was a trouble before, and now it's a problem. So a devotee is also a great hero because he conquers the influence of Maya. So a pure devotee who actually conquers Maya, she releases him, right? The point is that she's Krishna's servant. So if you're fully surrendered to Krishna, what is that verse? 7:14, all together? Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya dodatyaya mamevaye papadyante mayame tang tarantite. Maybe we'll do that more often. See if anyone seems to know this. You can gradually know these important verses, essential verse. So Krishna is saying, this is my Maya, and therefore it's very, very powerful, composed of the modes of nature. It's divine because it's connected to Krishna. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Duratyaya means really impossible to conquer, unless, unless? English. Yeah, but those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Because it's just like getting a pardon from the president or the king. You've got all these bars, and you got the guards, and you got the prison warden. They're not going to let you go. But if the governor says, "Yep, let him go," he's got a pardon. Oh, okay, because they're under. So that's the battle. The battle is internal, to actually surrender to Krishna and stay surrendered. Then Maya can't touch you if you're actually surrendered. And you're remembering Krishna in every moment. That's part of what surrender means. That's part of what surrender. As soon as the mind wanders, it means it's in this rebellious mode. No, all right, that's enough. I don't want to think of Krishna anymore. So the standard of pure devotion is always thinking of Krishna. Avismati Krishna Badada Vindayo. Avismati Krishna Badada Vindayo Chinotya Badhani Chashantanoti. Sattvasya Shuddhim Padamatma Bhaktim Jnanam cha Vijnana Viraga Yuktam. This is a verse right near the end of the Bhagavatam, quoted by I think Prabhupada quotes it one time I saw it. But Bhaktisiddhanta was a favorite of his. It's in that book. There's a whole chapter on the verses he would quote. This is one of them. So what it is it's the end of what I call the Krishna Katashtaka. I have these two ashtakas I found in the Bhagavatam. What's the other one, Zach? You remember? The sadhu? Yeah. So this is the Krishna Katashtaka. So this is Sutta Goswami, practically his last instruction. And he's glorifying hearing and chanting. Sankirtamano Bhagavan Ananta Shutanavama Vasanani Punksam. For one who is hearing and chanting the holy name or glorification of the Lord, then the Lord enters within the heart. He's already there, but he manifests. And Vidunotya Shesham, he cleanses away without leaving any remnant these negativities and lust, anger, and greed, etc. And so, how glorious is the hearing and chanting? Why shouldn't we hear about Bhagavan, Uttama Shloka? But on the other hand, Mrisha Gadasta Asatira Satkana Nakatyate Yad Bhagavan Adhokshaja. Those words that do not glorify Bhagavan Adhokshaja, who is the transcendental Lord, are Mrisha, false and useless and harmful, like that. And then in 6 lines, there's the topmost in my mind glorification of transcendental sound in the whole Bhagavatam. Tadeva Satyam, Tadohaiva Mangalam, Tadeva Punyam, Bhagavad Gunodiyam, Tadeva Ramyam, Ruchidang, Nabang Nabang, Tadeva Shastrang, Manaso Mahotsavam, Tadeva Shoka Nabashoshanang Naram, Yaduttama Shloka Yashonu Giyate. Those words which glorify the name and fame of the Supreme Lord are true, Tadeva Satyam, and Mangalam, very auspicious, Tadeva Punyam, they automatically bring piety, just by hearing and chanting. Bhagavad Gunodiyam, those words which glorify the qualities of Bhagavan. Tadeva Ramyam, they're very delightful. Ruchidam, tasty. Navang Navam means ever fresh. Tadeva, let's see if you can guess what this means. Shashrang Manaso Mahotsavam, an eternal festival for the mind. Manaso Mahotsavam. Tadeva Shokarnava Shoshanam. It dries up the ocean of lamentation. Shokarnava Shoshanang Nanam Yaduttama Shloka. Now you know what the next verse is? Some of you may know this verse, because it repeats from the first canto all the way into the 12th canto. Nayadvachas chitta badang haresho jagat pavitram, crows, pilgrimage of crows. That those words that don't glorify on the other hand, those words that don't glorify are like a pilgrimage of crows. And then it's a little different. It changes the words around a little bit. Wherever the achyuta, Krishna is being glorified, that's where the swan-like devotees stay. Not in the contaminated garbage heaps where the crows like to go. And then, guess what verse? Same verse, Tad Bhagavasargo Janataga Viplabo. That even if miscomposed, if it's not very literally high, but the words glorify the name and fame qualities of the Lord, then the great sages, they'll accept it and they'll hear it and chant it. And this was a verse, this is a very important verse for us, because this inspired Prabhupada to write the Bhagavatam even though he saw the imperfections in his own English. He put that verse into his preface. The preface tells you about the book, how I came to write this book, And there he describes the importance of the Bhagavatam, the all-important, essential nature of the Bhagavatam for everybody. And he describes how, yes, I recognize the imperfections of my English, but because it wholly and solely deals with Krishna, it will be accepted and will be effective. And so he printed it anyway, brought it, sold it in America, and we had it in a chance. He had it revised completely by his first editor. So it would be a little better English, which he knew would have a bigger impact. And then he talks about naishkarmya, in other words, impersonal, that there may be some effort to transcend without any bhakti, but that doesn't look very good without achyuta. And then the last 2 verses, he talks about, he sums it up, he says, Yashakshayam eva parishramak paro varnashramacharata pakshutarishu avismati shiradapada padmayo Gunanabhara Shravananaradibi. So he says, the only thing you can get from very nicely practicing the material parts of the Vedas, he's not going outside of the Vedas, karma kanda. So he gives it varnashrama, within the varnashram without bhakti. And yoga and studying the Vedas and all this. You can get fame and you can get wealth, which are evanescent, temporary. Yashakshiyam, parishramakaro, and with great effort. You have to try for many births, to achieve the heavenly planets and all this. But, avismriti shridhara padapan. Now, who can guess what avismriti means? Avismriti. No, not forgetting. Vismriti is forgetting. Avismriti is not forgetting. So, constant remembrance of Shridhara Pada Padmaya. Shridhara is a name for Krishna. And Damodar Kumar, what does Pada Padma mean? Lotus feet. Yes, constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Krishna. In this case, he named it Sridhar. That's the result of your carefully hearing and chanting and showing respect for the transcendental sound. And then this last verse is the one I quoted before. What's the benefits of constantly remembering Krishna? Which is a basic part of bhakti, coming to that point. Avismriti Krishna Padada, not Sridhar, Krishna Padada Vindayo, Chinotya Buddhani, destroys everything inauspicious in your life. That's the first thing, Then we feel the benefits. You stay in the temple for a week and chant Hare Krishna, and you feel so much relief, and it goes on like that. So, Chinotya Buddhani, Chashang Tanoti. This word Sham is a Sanskrit word. It's within the word Shankara. It's within the name for Shiva, who means he who brings auspiciousness. So Sham is auspiciousness, good fortune, everything good. Tanoti, it nourishes that. So in other words, your life turns around. Just by, the more you can remember Krishna, what to speak of remembering him all the time. And then, Sattvasya Shuddhim. Shuddhi means pure. And Sattvasya here means your existence. It purifies your existence, just like Rishabdev says. You purify your existence by tapasya within bhakti, and you become eligible to taste unlimited happiness. So Sattvasya Shuddhim, and that Paramatma Bhaktim, hearing about Krishna, Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, Krishna, engenders pure devotion to Krishna, characterized by these three things: Jnana, Vijnana, and Vairagya. Knowledge, which we did by reading the book, but Vijnana, realized knowledge, and of course, Vairagya, detachment from material life. So this is a wonderful last lesson there. We can apply it in our lives. So that's Dhruva's experienced all of that in his 6 months. He's gone from, no offense, being a petulant little boy who was determined to have a kingdom greater than Brahma's, which was kind of an impossible childish desire. But because he met Narada, and Narada gave him this instruction, which he followed, he's transformed that. Desire has been transformed. His heart has been transformed into this, soft-hearted, pure devotee who everybody loves. And he's just pouring out his affection for his mother and even his stepmother. He bowed down to his Suruchi. That forgiveness, she was the proximate cause for all of his trouble, but he saw that trouble was his greatest benediction because it resulted in him getting darshan of Vishnu, which is like very, very rare. And, sure to going back to Godhead, So there's so many wonderful lessons in this pastime. But the basic thing is to see how anybody, and this is shown by the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and even in ISKCON, this 50 years, how anyone who seems to be beyond the pale. I don't know how much, if you get Vijay's book distribution pastime things. If you're not getting it, I can get you. And every day practically has another story. The last person in the world you would think would take a book, and but you approach him or he sees the book table and suddenly he comes over and it's transformative. And within ISKCON, so many stories of people being saved, from imminent suicide. And then getting a book, checking it out, putting the suicide on hold, coming to the temple, chanting Hare Krishna. Bhadra Narayana can tell you 10 stories like that. Amazing transformations. So that's what it will take. That's what it takes to get out of this world. We have to have a complete revolution in consciousness. And that's what it will take for this world to be saved. I mean, we're at the point here, historically. We don't think it's going to happen because it's supposed to. This Kali Yuga is supposed to last so many years, and it's already been miraculously saved from nuclear war about 40, 50 times if you read the actual history. Shall I press the button? No. Let me make a phone call and check if what's on the computer screen is really the attack from the Americans or from the Russians. We thought, oh, it was a mistake, a computer glitch. Yeah. The world is saved. That's the situation. But now with this climate change thing, which is happening right now, I mean, we didn't used to sit like this in March. We're practically in March, and we just didn't have this kind of prolonged cold spell and extreme weather. And now they're saying that the rest of the country, we're kind of going to be safe from this. I mean, a huge cold snap that's totally unusual in March, beginning of March. As much as 40 degrees below the average temperature for that day, which is insane. And it's just going to go on like that, without some change. So how can the world be saved? It has to start in the heart. It's not going to be some kind of arrangement, treaty, which can be broken so easily. There has to be a change of heart, and that's what we're all about, of trying to reform our own hearts and giving people a chance to become purified, and invoking the mercy of the Lord that somehow save this earth planet and go back to Godhead. So, any discussion on these points? Hare Krishna. Yeah. Okay, who's got to give him the mic? He used to be cold before he chanted Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you gotta push it.
So, I don't know, maybe
Anyway,
the people could hear it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you hear devotees quote this, which I don't exactly know where it's from. Like two different aspects of, you're talking about Maya tests us or Krishna tests us. So one is that Krishna won't give you a test you can't pass.
Uh-huh.
And the other one is he'll give you a test and he'll give you the same test over and over and over again until you pass it.
Until you pass it.
So those are the two things, which... And in some ways, it's like, oh, Krishna won't give you a test you can't pass, but it's like, all right, or Maya won't give you a test you can't pass, but I mean, it seems that people are being tested all the time, and they're not passing it.
Yeah.
But this idea of, oh, Krishna will give you a test until you pass it, I mean, I guess that makes sense at some level, because...
I mean, the thing is, after all, the passing, this is our so I guess people understood the question. Does Krishna give you only tests that you can pass, or does he give you the same test until you pass it? There's actually two different ideas there. And, I mean, it's this is where our independence lies. We're minutely independent. Whether we're going to try to pass the test. The real key is that even though it's a test, our faith is tested. That Krishna will give us the intelligence and the strength to actually pass this test, which seems impossible. But as Srila Prabhupada famously said, Zach, impossible is? Yeah, there's a word in the Fool's Dictionary. So, I mean, in a sense, we're being tested every time we take birth as a human being, isn't it? But the real meaningful test comes when our somehow or other Gyata Sukriti or the mercy of the pure devotee, we come in contact with the pure devotion, and then the question is, are we fortunate enough to have a receptive enough mind and heart to at least maintain some interest, at least become interested in bhakti. Enough interested to come into the association of devotees. Now, in the present day and age, that can be through the medium of the internet, or it can be in so many different medias. But somehow or other, to pursue that relationship, that sangha, and imbibe more of the purifying energy of basically the pure sound of the holy name, etc. So now, at a certain point, when we become a little more serious, then there's a series of tests. I mean, the test often is, am I going to take this process seriously and suspend my disbelief and my cynicism and begin to do the bhajan of Hare Krishna? Whether it's 2 rounds a day, 1 round a day, or just chanting with your family or somehow or other, but seriously chanting Hare Krishna. Welcome, Hare Krishna. And as soon as that happens, then Krishna takes a more direct role in our purification. But how fast we get purified, that's our freedom. We can prolong it for many lifetimes, or we can get really serious and make a sincere effort to give up the things that we know are impediments, and accept those things that we know are auspicious, and even though we don't want to accept them because they seem inconceivable that we can do it. Or I know I can't give this up because I'm completely habituated. But actually, that's where the faith is tested, that Krishna can do anything. He can give us the strength to give up things we didn't think we could, and to take on challenges we didn't think. So we're constantly tested. There's even Srila Prabhupada felt that he was tested, his faith, and he saw that many of his god brothers, they didn't pass the test of following the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to maintain the GBC and the unity of the society. So that incredible thing that he built up, the Gaudiya Math that was so effective, some 64 maths, printing so many thousands of books, temples opening, became ineffective and kind of crippled. But the one fabulous result of it was Srila Prabhupada, who took the order and started his own Gaudiya Math, generically, and came out successful because he was so surrendered. So yeah, there's going to be tests, but we will eventually pass the tests. Prabhupada said once you get what did he say? Once you get addicted to Krishna, once you get to Krishna, you're finished. You can't go back. But you may slow down. You may dig in your heels, but Krishna is so attractive, and Maya is so unattractive that eventually we have to surrender. So why prolong the agony? Because it's just a little bit of tapasya. I like to say, like, material life is a little bit of enjoyment and a whole lot of suffering. Who would have dreamed that that innocent just cheeseburger and fries would produce so much suffering? Oh no, we can't eat in front of the deities. Sorry, did you? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, okay. So the tests are there, and for all of us, and how quickly we can matriculate. You know what that word means? Graduate is up to us. Any other comments or questions? Any of this? Bhakti Jamal. I can try to find it. I think a lot of it was coming when he was when he was in Radha Damodar, and praying like anything, that somehow Rupa Goswami would bless him with the strength to do what he thought was impossible, and it certainly looked impossible. Certainly Samadhi Maharaji thought it was impossible, that this one single old man, no matter how pure a devotee is, could go to America and start a society. So I'll search for that. Yeah. Okay. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.